Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, it is Tuesday. Tuesday is a night where we do important things like saving people from bad decisions.
Yes.
Isn't that's kind of what tonight's about?
It's our little corner of the world, yeah.
So hopefully by the end of tonight, you'll be able to say, yes, I am going to be able to make an informed decision about my purchase and be a better person come Wednesday. I think that fits. That's good. We should get t-shirts made.
And it's Taco Tuesday.
There is that too. And we don't get as much ice cream as we used to. That's another thing we'll have to take up with.
No, but you know, my wife actually made tacos today, and I don't know if
Nice.
she knew it was Taco Tuesday, but anyways, yeah. And I feel like this is going to be our little secret because it's just you, me, and like I don't know, like
Yeah,
1,500 or 2,000 of our closest friends, right?
yeah,
So
we're all
however
over
many
the place.
people watch this over the various channels, but I ate 6 of them. I ate
Oh.
6 tacos.
Well, you know, it's that we just, for those of you who don't follow our weather up here in the upper Midwest, we just had a big, massive snowstorm for a lot of us. So whenever there's snow and cold, you know, one of our body things it does is it wants to consume more calories to keep us warm.
Well, first of all,
Perfectly.
not just had, we're still having. It's supposed to go through tomorrow yet. Yeah, and it's pretty much, you know, we've not had winter all year. Like normally this time of year, we've got like 3 feet of snow on the ground, and you know, because I'm way up north here, right? You know, even norther than you. Uh, but John refers to where I live as up north, so you can just sort of take that to the bank. But anyway, yeah, no, we've got like all winter's worth today,
Yeah,
basically.
it
We have
was
like a
crazy.
foot on the ground now, so.
Yeah, it was crazy, crazy time of the year. Tonight, Ben, I wanted to kind of dig into microphones a little bit because there's just so much, I think, misunderstanding when it comes to microphones and,
Oh,
and
yes.
things, and we've had that. And then at some point in time, I want you to address how my little countryman lav mic, what kind of evil voodoo that they have built into this thing, that this tiny little element can sound incredibly. I mean, it matches the quality of some handheld microphones and good handheld microphones.
Is it a B3?
It was that one that I got from you guys here.
Okay, yeah, just if it's a lav, it's probably B3. There's B3 and B6. I really like the B3. I mean, as much as I can like a lav, because let's be honest, I still don't like lavs.
It's
But
beautiful.
they're a necessary evil, and I've got a picture to kind of show what's great about them. But
It's beautiful.
and yeah, they serve a purpose, right? You know, so.
So let's kind of dive into it. I mean, we've both have been seeing some questions about microphones and such, and people have had misinformation. There's so many places to go. Where do you want to start tonight?
Well, yeah, funny you say misinformation, but you know, I'll tell you what, I'll let you take the lead because I'm gonna just sort of withhold that thought.
Okay,
If you didn't, viewers, if you didn't know this wasn't scripted, you know now. Like we're
Okay.
just making this up. I'm like, I don't
then
have a script to follow here.
let's start right. You know, again, a lot of misinformation. Let's just jump to that video that you dropped. You dropped here. Was it yesterday? Yeah,
I
yesterday.
was trying so hard not to bring that up, but yeah, thank you
Yeah,
because
no,
I did want to mention it. I just didn't want to like blurt it right out. It was just a product of all the misinformation out there, and I think that it's reasonable. I think it's reasonable where people draw conclusions. You know, if you know 1 + 1 = 2 sometimes, or it looks like it does. You know, it's reasonable to draw those conclusions. But the data is flawed, and so the result is flawed. You know, and the video was. Do cellular phones interfere with microphones? With specifically with UHF microphones operating between 470 and 608. And I would love for you to just go watch the video because I think that's the best way. I've answered the question in text dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I've tried to make reasonable and compelling, you know, points to help people understand. And finally, I just said, you know, doggone it, I'm going to document it with crystal clear, you know, empirical evidence to help everybody to the other side. You know, because so many times I think we're chasing ghosts. We're trying to solve the wrong problem and we don't end up solving the problem. So please just watch the video. I think you said you've got a link to it,
We just
John.
put it in the chat, so every chat has it. If you happen to be watching later and there isn't a chat that you can see, just go to the NLFX YouTube channel. So you can pop out to YouTube and search NLFX Pro, and it'll pop up, and it's right there, and you'll be able to subscribe to their channel. and watch an awesome video. And then once you're done with that awesome video, then there's another one about this guy walking way down the road, and they're trying to talk on a wireless microphone. It's fabulous, fabulous.
Well, again, it's all about trying to provide real world, evidence and real data. I mean, I'm not a paid influencer. I don't get paid for the videos. I don't really, I mean, I guess I could say I don't really care, but I do care. Obviously, it's my passion for the truth and for helping people that drives this, these things. So obviously, we would love if viewers would also be customers. That would help, because that's would support my salary, and then I could keep doing it. But at the end of the day, my motivation is purely to try to help people have better results. To solve these real problems, and I've realized that I'm fairly privileged in the access I have to large scale events and the things that I do, and I can sort of pull that curtain back a little bit. I think people are really kind of geeking over the software I used in this video. Even to me, it's just sort of like it's an everyday thing. I'm like, yeah, everybody's got this software. I'm coming to find out that's not the case, right? But I'm also sort of humored by the people that are kind of arguing with me. I'm like, you guys, did you not watch the video? Like, they're like, well, yeah, but I'm like, no, yeah, but right? Like, just anyway. Our mutual good friend Rachel Lynch has consoled me on that a little bit. She's like, yeah, it's just one of the things when you do videos you're going to get,
There's always,
and I'm like,
always that one person who's definitely.
I wish it was just one.
Yeah, there's always, yeah.
But, I think as long as people are engaged in a meaningful discussion and we're moving towards the truth, that's good. Because I don't really care about being right. I already know I'm right. It's just, to be blunt, it's not arrogance. I already know I'm right. I don't need the validation of, DJs or whatever to tell me I'm right. That I don't need after doing RF coordination for 9 Division I college football national championships and hundreds of national tour shows, and I mean, I've supported wireless systems for 30 years, thousands of them. So I don't need to win the argument. I just want to help, but I'm happy to have the discussion, to a point where it helps the people that are commenting. It's not for me, it's for them. So that's why I'm continuing to engage in the discussions, as long as people are having a discussion,
Again,
link
for that again is in the chat. If you guys are watching this out on YouTube later, you'll be able to get that. So,
tacos and therapy. This has been a great Tuesday.
It's a good night. It's a good night. So Ben,
your title of the show was various types of microphones and how they would. I guess have you ask some leading questions, but I think first maybe I'll just pick from the title and I'll just show a few pictures real quick here and just in case viewers don't know, and if you do know, well, this will just be a fun little trip for all of us down remedial lane. But so various types that are common form factors we see in the mobile audio application, handheld, of course, so-called because you hold it in your hand, cleverly enough, right? So this is my picture for the lavalier. This picture might be the best thing about a lavalier, but I think we're going to play a little game called Find the Lav.
I have no idea where it is.
Well, I think one of the great things about lavs is they're very small and hard to see. And so that makes them really good for theater, which obviously this picture is from a theater. Makes them great for recording. I wear one when I shoot videos, things like the mic video we just talked about. They can be sewn into headpieces. They can be sewn into costuming. And in this case, let's try to find a complementary color that I can use here to highlight. In this case, the lav is right there.
Oh, there it is. I was wondering if this was like, Jeff Short has been talking about lav microphones in the theater role, and that they put it on the forehead of the
Yep,
actor.
very common that you'd have them up in hair pieces or up here. That's very common. So, anyway. So that's what's great about lavs. Now, and you said, and this is a Countryman B3. It's exactly the lav that you own.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are not great about lavs, right? Engineering is always a series of compromises. A lot of people struggle with their lavs. How do I make it not sound, so crappy? How to make it not sound so tinny? Obviously, conversations that we've done some videos on that, and happy to help customers. But there are significant challenges when the handheld is. See if my annotation tool is still on here. When the handheld is being used at whoops, getting ahead of ourselves here, sorry, at a distance of, let's try to draw my little handheld microphone here. So fairly short distance there.
Mm-hmm.
And this lav has a significantly further distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to draw dimension lines of the mouse. And also, when she turns her head, that distance changes.
Certainly.
So lots of challenges with the lav, but of course, engineering, like I said, being a series of compromises, there's the upside, which is that, it's small and it's easy to hide, and with a good EQ and good preamps, things that typically we don't find on small analog mixers or DJ mixers, but when you have those things, which most theaters do, you can do really well with the lav. It just gets a little bit harder when you don't have some of those tools. And I think last week we talked about digital mixers, and that would be a really good resource, a really good tool to have, because now you start having some of those pro processing tools to use with that lav. But another solution would be to move the mic closer and in a way that it follows the head, and that would be like a headset, for example. So there we go. Here's a headset mic.
And that might be why some of the sound for theatrical productions are taping it to the head, because then it's in a consistent, no matter which way the head is going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That makes more sense now. Okay.
100%. Yeah. And again, whether or not you can do that, there's a whole lot of, now you get into not just engineering being compromises, but you have, producers, costumers, wardrobe, audio. And, I'm not sure where exactly. I don't know if anybody's actually figured out the literal pecking order in a theater, but I've always felt that as audio, we were kind of low on the totem pole. So we don't really get to say where we want the microphone to go. I mean, sometimes we get some input, but usually not. So I don't know. I have friends that work in Broadway houses. They could probably tell me maybe they've got it better than I do. But anyway, and now this, of course, puts the mic element fairly close to the face. This is a nice big element. They tend to be very, pretty good sounding. Of course, these were, this type of mic was made famous by Garth Brooks and Britney Spears, who both wore the CM311A. That isn't this mic here, but I think probably my preference, though, sort of a hybrid between a lav and its small stature and whatever concealability, and a headset would be an ear set, where you've got a very small minimalist headset mic, and they come often in a few different shades. They come in beige, which I call Minnesota, and they come in tan, which I call Florida, and they also come in cocoa, and then they come with just like a jet black, right? Which, it'd be sort of the universal color, because every other microphone is black too. So, that helps to sort of conceal these things and make them less obvious. And these are a really good choice, because you have that inverse square law relationship. It's going to be very close to the audio source, and it's going to follow the head. So that would be kind of the three basic types, as it were, of or form factors of mics that we would have. Now within that, there are two different, I'm simplifying this, but two different construction characteristics, and those would be dynamics and condensers, which I have some more slides on, but I'll pause for questions.
Well, and that's where I was going to kind of go there, is that as we're talking about the different microphones, obviously they have different elements and different ways of picking up the sound. That's where I wanted to go. Let's talk about those actual elements on those microphones and what makes them different.
Well, you are in luck, my friend. So this is a dynamic mic, and it really works pretty much exactly like a loudspeaker. You can see we've got a permanent magnet here. Whoops, my annotation tool is not playing ball today. We've got a permanent magnet here. We've got a voice coil here. And then we've got our diaphragm here. And so if we look at how that correlates to a loudspeaker, let's see if I do have my cutaway. Bear with me one quick second. I'll be right back. Go grab that.
So for those of you who don't know, what's off camera with Ben, just below the scenes, is half of the warehouse. Basically anything that was in the warehouse that was going to be tossed, and Ben could use it for an object lesson in one of the shows. You have seen it at some point in time, probably, and I'm guessing that this is the speaker that has been cut in half to show us the innards. Yes.
Yes, and it is complete still. The voice coil is complete, so it actually works. If you apply a signal to it, it does actually motor.
Interesting.
Uh, but we can see this is how a loudspeaker is built, and it's almost identical. We've got our permanent magnet, our coil here, our voice coil, which is a electromagnet basically. That we apply an alternating current to that, and then we all remember how magnets either are attracted to or repulsed by a magnet depending on their polarity. And then this cone would be the same as the diaphragm we would call in a microphone. So one of the fun tricks we did in electronics school was we would talk into headphones, turn headphones into microphones and that sort of thing, which, probably everybody got to do that at some point in their life. But so this is how a dynamic mic works. And you basically, and I think I have a dynamic mic here. Actually, you know what? I know I do. Gosh, remember all those mics I dug out last week? I'm gonna dig one out again. This is fun. All right. Yes, I do have a lot of stuff here, John. My wife is a very understanding person. To
She
say the
is
least.
a very, very.
Yes, you know her,
Uh-huh.
and I know yours, and she's also a very understanding person. So, uh, so here it's not easy to look at, but anyway, there we can see there is a dynamic mic element, and we can see a little bit of that kind of winding in there if you look, the copper winding.
Yeah.
Uh, but maybe, yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter. So what we're doing here is the acoustic energy is moving the diaphragm, and so it's the inverse of what's happening to a speaker, where the voltage is causing the cone to move in a speaker. In this case, the movement of the diaphragm or the cone is causing the voltage to go into our preamp, and they tend to generate very, very small amounts of voltage, like literally millivolts, 1 to 4 millivolts. And that's why we have a mic preamp in our mixers. By contrast, a condenser mic, let me see if I've got an example here. I should have 520, 420, that'll do. Perfect. Happy day. You can see that looks very different inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's this very thin, small element. And what we've got here basically is this membrane or diaphragm and then an electrically charged backplate. Condenser mics require power. So either they have a battery inside of them or they use phantom power from a mixer or on a wireless. Of course, that is being provided power by the wireless's batteries. And that means that they are much more sensitive. So very small movements, vibrations on this diaphragm create these electric currents, and there's an active circuit in here. So condensers can be much more sensitive microphones, and they can also be a little bit more fragile, although I think by now we've largely figured out how to make condensers that people don't break too easily. So because of this, though, your lavaliers and your headsets, because they're so tiny, in order to get them to work with any real good result, those are condensers. Whereas if it was a dynamic, it would have to be much bigger.
And how do we saw the condenser you just showed from the 420? That's an EV element for their microphone.
Yep.
How do they take that and make it so small to be in that little B3 that we were just seeing? I mean, that again seems like this black magic voodoo thing going on there, something.
That's what it is. I couldn't tell you. If I told you, I'd get kicked out of the secret society.
Yeah.
So, it's just like anything. I think, I grew up in a TV repair shop where we were doing, large through-hole soldering. We actually had a solder gun, because the solder contacts were so big. And now we would use like a solder pencil for most electronics. But even so, if you think about like, a cable like this has circuit boards inside of it now, there are things that, components that we literally can't see. They're so small. So I think that's just what's happened, right? Everything's gotten smaller and more capable and more powerful. And, microphones aren't really all that advanced in the grand scheme of where technology's gone. It's just, now, I mean, we have microphone arrays that we put into ceilings in conference rooms that have 90 microphones inside of them because they're so small. Think about the microphones on your cell phone, how small those are and where those are, and again, that's a deep and slippery slope of topics, but
so let's just stick with the lab for just a second now. There's obviously the B3 we talked about. It's Countryman, and it's a very, very high quality lab. And then there's some very, very inexpensive lab mics that don't sound anywhere like they're not even in the same ballpark. What kind of technology differences, or what would be the differences between the two that makes it so they are so glaringly different?
Well, I'm going to give kind of a generic answer to this, and I'm just going to say that, it's probably a combination of three things. And one is the engineering time that is spent, the quality of the engineering that is spent on the actual product design. But then, of course, you have the quality of the materials. Certainly like a neodymium magnets are stronger per size than a ceramic magnet, whatever, that sort of thing. And then just the quality of construction. So, having a good design, having a better design with better materials and better assembly is going to lead to a better product. It's really kind of, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know why I always revert to cars as an example, but, cars are all made out of steel and rubber, so why aren't they all the same, right?
Yeah, a lot of variation in that world for surely. Ben, we're gonna have about 5 minutes, give or take. Let's kind of jump into more of the handheld element side of it now, because you talked about there's dynamic and condenser, and they can be. Last week we talked about a lot of different elements from the Electro Voice line, and there were, goodness, 4 or 5. I think you showed that. Goodness, you had quite a few. 6, 7, maybe. Yeah, whatever. There's quite a few in that line, or in their RE3 system. What kind of differences are there? Let's talk about that.
Did I read your mind, John?
That's where I was trying to see how I could get you there.
Yeah, I had her all teed up and ready to go. So these are the pickup patterns, and the pickup patterns are not necessarily related to the type of capsule that it is. So we can have dynamic or condenser with these pickup patterns. But and I've got some great graphics courtesy of our friends at Shure that show this in a 3D sense. But basically, an Omni is what it shows here. It picks up in all directions, and sometimes that's exactly what you want, and sometimes it isn't, right? Subcardioid is not something we really see very typically in the live sound world. Neither is a figure 8 microphone. Most of the mics that we see are Omni. And that's not typical for handheld, by the way. It's not very typical. That's very typical for a lav. But on our handhelds, we most typically see a cardioid or a hypercardioid or a supercardioid, which isn't shown here, but I've got a 3D balloon to show you that. And a hyper and a super are really very similar. And you can see why they call it a cardioid, because it has this heart-shaped pattern. So let's look at that in a 3D realm. And then I've actually got a handheld mic here too, because why wouldn't I? My little playhouse here. But anyway, all right, let's see here. This is the pickup pattern of an omnidirectional mic. It doesn't really matter what side you address that mic from, it's going to pick up the same. Whereas if I take my mic here and I talk into it from behind it, you probably heard some difference in the pickup pattern.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, so it's directional. So when I talk into it where the pattern is designed to pick up, it's going to pick me up better.
Yep.
And that's on purpose. Because if I had this and I had a stage monitor here, that's my stage monitor.
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah.
And my stage monitor was blasting sound into the back of this microphone, and it was just as sensitive back here. That would be a real problem for feedback. So, yeah. So let's look at another option, and that would be a cardioid. And here you can see that if we did the same thing, all right. Zoom and I are about to have a go-round here. See, if I did it's definitely not operator error, I'll tell you that.
No.
So, if we had the same thing here, This mic is way more sensitive on the back end, as we just saw with the mic I'm talking in right now. So most of this sound is really not picked up like the sound from our singer who's singing.
Mm-hmm.
That's supposed to be a music note.
Yeah,
Just go with this.
okay, yeah, it looks like it. Yep.
I think my my drawing skills really peaked about first grade.
Yeah. Well, as long as you can still convey the message.
That's right. And here we can see this is a supercardioid. And again, we'll notice it does look a lot like the hypercardioid, minor differences, but it's a bit tighter on the sides, so it has more side rejection. But the compromise for that is we do have a little bit more pickup, kind of a lobe on the back side of it. So that is kind of the trade. Let's go back to our initial, and we can kind of see how that looks now again here, you know. So what mic is right for you? Well, that is the question, isn't it? By and large, cardioids are by far the most common, but supercardioids can be great. Again, if you need some of that side rejection, if you're out in front of your speakers and things, that's much more of a concern than a floor wedge coming at you. It also tends to push that pattern up a little bit. So if you have people who like to, hold the mic down here, God forbid, and not use it properly, supercardioid condenser can be a little bit better for that. It's more sensitive and it's got that tighter pattern. But engineering, again, like I said, it's always a series of compromises. So, we have to be a little bit on it a little bit with how we use that mic too, right? In other words, don't just everybody go run out and buy a supercardioid condenser because I said so, because there's pros and cons to all of them, We've done some other shows, I think, John, where we've talked about even within those categories of dynamic cardioids, there's significant differences in millivolts per Pascal. How sensitive are they? Like what do you get for electrical energy for the amount of acoustic energy you put in? How do they sound? What is their frequency response? A lot of differences. But hopefully that helps, I think, in the general sense.
One last thing, Ben, before we wrap up, because after this, guys, you need to bounce out to DJNTV.com/chill for the Tuesday night music show. Brian and the crew are going to be back for another night tonight. Again, DJNTV.com/chill. Supercardioid, let's just look at, or even hypercardioid, let's look at, okay, that element microphone. There's a difference in sound quality between my EV versions that have this and the ones I can find other places. It can be they both say they're supercardioid and they may sound completely different. Why would that be in that realm? Are we having the same situation as the labs, or what's the dealio?
Well, absolutely. Even within, let's talk about our friends at Sennheiser for a minute. I love Sennheiser mics, and they've got their 835. Let's talk about supercardioid condensers. So they've got their 865, which is a supercardioid condenser, and they've got
mic.
It is. It's such a great sounding mic. Yeah, a band that I was touring with was using that for lead vocals, and it just made me happy every day. But they also have their 965. And you'd say, well, now wait a minute. One's an 865, one's a 965. What's the difference, right? And it's somewhat complicated other than to say, well, the 965 is better. But sometimes different voices and different preferences, people will prefer one. Did a great show. I'm sorry, John, I strayed a little bit. I did a show with somebody else, but I did a great show with Andrea Olson, who's a singer-songwriter, and she works more in like the worship art space. And we did a show where she sang into a bunch of different microphones.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really pretty cool. And you can also find that on the NLFX YouTube channel. And then what was really interesting, because Andrea's hearing herself in her in-ear monitors, I said, well, now which mic did you like?
Oh.
Where did you like your voice at? And so I guess my point is there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer. But, when we talk about the EV versus, let's say, a brand we've never heard of, maybe it's a gem, probably not. EV's been making mics for literally 97 years. It'll be 100 years coming up here in 27. They know some things, right? And so do the folks at Shure, and so do the folks at Sennheiser and Audio-Technica. That's all they do. They know some things, right? They make, good products, but Shure also makes a PG48, which is a pretty low-level mic, and they make, the KSM8, which is an incredible mic. And so it's kind of like, again, I'll go back to cars. Ford makes the Fiesta, which was, it is what it is. We used to have one, and
There's a
yeah, I
Fiesta,
remember
yeah.
road trips and those things. But anyway, and then they also make like the Mustang. And they own Jaguar too. So, there's just these differences in quality, and also by design though. And again, we've made some good shows, you and I, on frequency response. Certain mics are tailored for vocals, certain mics are tailored for instruments. So it's a tough topic to wrap up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, give an idea. That's good though. Good information that not every mic there isn't a perfect mic for everybody, and
Nope.
yet unfortunately in our world there's a lot of bad options out there that sometimes we are like, I'm going to just go and jump into that, where it should have a little bit more thought process and maybe a little bit of feedback to say, maybe this would be a better microphone for your situation than that, because I'm in front of my speakers, and having a dynamic mic in front of my speakers may not be the best option for me. With
No doubt. And hype mics, dynamic mic might be better as a hype mic. If you're really screaming into that thing, it's going to take the abuse, And I'll tell you, I just want to go back to that video with Andrea for a minute. What impressed me most was her ability to sing that same phrase over and over again at the same, really just the same,
the same way.
Just robotic precision, was kind of neat. It was a fun science experiment. So yeah, give that a watch. But
excellent. And again, that's out. Go to YouTube and search NLFX Pro, and you'll find their channel. Make sure you subscribe, and then you can watch some of the best of Ben Stowe.
Well, we got, fortunately, some of my coworkers too.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more videos coming from my colleague Kyle.
Nice.
I'd really like to get him on some of your shows too, John. I think he's just a great guy, and he walks the walk in the DJ realm really well, and just brings stuff to the table that I don't. So.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. And we'll have to get that set up. So, hey, we're out of time, Ben. Thank you very much for putting some things together for us tonight on mics. And we'll be back again next Tuesday night, same time, same bat channel. Can do that.
Sounds good. I'm going to go see if there's any more tacos left.
Sounds good. We'll catch you guys later. Again, DJNTV.com/chill for the Tuesday Night Music Show. Good night, everybody.